Peace, Amani, Alafia, Abibi Fahode. This is your sister, Dr. Maat, coming before you with another powerful discussion. Today I have with me Brother Tdka, Dr. Tdka Kilimanjaro. This is one of my favorite scholars, favorite researchers, favorite publishers, and we have him here tonight. I actually called Baba a few days ago when in the midst of all of the riots and marches, because Baba just recently published a book entitled On Organization, a very powerful book. And we're going to talk about this book tonight. And also he published a number of books. You can go to his site, University of Kemet Press. Okay, you can go to the website and purchase his books. I have a number of his books, What Must Be Done. I also have his book, Seba, a researcher's first handbook. I also have, and this is my favorite text right here, Ma'at, guiding principles of moral living. All right. So he has many more. He has many. As a matter of fact, I think I didn't pull the one behind me, Bob, but I know you published a book on the K through 12 school curriculum. And I believe that I have that book on my shelf, and I didn't grab that one. So I am a huge fan of Doc and all of his work. He also co-authors books alongside his wife, Dr. Kilimanjaro, brother Yara, Aneb, and also a brother Tagamba Haru, an elder. And so he has a number of books. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Tdka Kilimanjaro.
Thank you, Dr. Maat. Appreciate the opportunity to communicate with you and your listeners.
Thank you so much, Baba, for giving us your time. I know that you're a very busy person. You're working over at a HBCU, doing a lot of good research over there. And so I thank you, Baba, for giving us your time. So, Baba, look, let me pull up what I wanted to ask you, Baba. There were a number of questions that I wanted to ask you and a number of things I wanted to discuss with you tonight. But, Baba, I'm going to at least hold you until 8 o'clock. I'm not going to hold you beyond 8 o'clock. I mean, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. I'm sorry. All right. So, Baba, the first thing, what are your thoughts on how we responded to the incident that happened with our brother George Floyd and also other victims of police brutality, i.e. Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Walter Scott, Oscar Grant, and the list goes on. What are your thoughts about how the Black community responds to these sort of things? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say it's really painful thinking about what happened to that brother and all the other George Floyd, all the other folk who have been, brutalized by these white folk and destroyed by them, literally choked to death, suffocated. And so the fact that they were able to get that on video with this guy's knee on his neck was reflective of what has happened in our history, that these ruling people have had their knees on our neck for the last almost 500 and so odd years. So that's the first thing. So the very fact that it was so obvious what they were doing, meaning they were killing this guy and in such a lethal and methodical way that it went around the world. The world saw what we saw. That's why the world was out there marching too. And so that's the first point, that we were in the context of a larger movement. The world saw this and saw the visceral reaction to it. And just as they saw it, we saw it also. It drives home one point, that the thing that we got right was that we did something. Now, after we let off the steam and march and, break the windows and burn down some buildings, etc., the next question is, what are we going to do with that? You see, that was a spontaneous movement. That's called a spontaneous eruption, a spontaneous movement. That happens a lot in history, but not on this level, given, the immensity of the way in which that guy was treated. So it hit the world. But having said that, once that initial spontaneous movement dies down, the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? And in history, we have not done very much other
Mm.
than end up in some reform movements. You ask me, and we'll go into it in detail.
Yes, sir.
Um, we haven't gotten much done after the rebellions. I wouldn't call them riots. I just call them rebellions. The 60s, back in the 60s, 66, Watts, coming forth, Rodney King, all those periods in history, even Baltimore, as you recall. Um, we haven't done much with that other than some, band-aid like reforms that don't fundamentally change anything. The white folk just go back to what they're doing as the economic system continues to decay and rot and age.
Mm.
It becomes less and less possible to even hold on to the reforms that we forced them to move forward with 5 years ago. So we should discuss what happens after the marching and the frustration and the venting is over, because that's all this has been. This is just venting. This is frustration. This is allowing the pain to seep out. And then the question becomes, what are you going to do about it after that?
And Baba, that was my question. I love the energy. I love the energy that we have, the energy that I see, but I think that that energy again needs to be organized and then directed to something, meaningful, something that's transformative. And so I thought to myself, like you said, Baba, after we tear up the stores, because I'm looking online, I see brothers running in Target and sisters running in Target and then running out with TVs. After we, burn things down, like you said, Baba, what's the next? And it seems like when brothers and sisters online or even in the community ask that question, we get attacked. They're like, what? So now we're going to burn it down. We're going to burn. What do you mean? I'm not saying don't do what you do. I mean, people protest in different ways. But my question, like you said, Baba, is what's next? Because we've seen this before. Now, granted, like you said, with George Floyd, we've been heard around the world, seen around the world, but we have seen this before. We've seen this with Sandra Bland, as I've stated. We've seen this with Philando Castile. I mean, they shot that brother on Facebook Live. We watched it live. I believe, Bob, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, 2 weeks before the murder of George Floyd, there was a brother, I believe he was on Facebook Live or something like that, and he was getting chased by the police, and they ran him off and chased him down and killed him. So, it didn't, we didn't see the same outrage, and I guess because it wasn't highly publicized in the media, so we didn't, we weren't outraged. And that's another thing too I would like to talk about: selective outrage. It seems like we kind of pick and choose what we get outraged about, Baba. But yeah, so that's the question, what's next? And like I said, Bob, it seems like a lot of us, when we ask that question, we tend to get, attacked. Okay, so Baba, basically what you're saying is that these are spontaneous movements that we see, and hence these aren't going to be effective movements. Is that what you're saying, Baba?
Well, I'm saying that the spontaneous movement uh, unfolds, and then within that movement, the leadership has to have a plan in place in order to transform it into something that's long-standing, or should I say transformative. What has happened is we really don't have a 5 options here. Let's work out the options in this country. I put it on page 17 on organization. The first one, when something like this breaks out, you end up fighting for a reformist program ranging from assimilation and integration into white society. You try to get them, guilt trip them into changing something, modifying something that releases some pressure on you, police reforms, something like that. Um, the second one is, we got, folk running around with some guns and outfits on, bluffing black power, like they're going to be able to overthrow the white folks' government. You don't make any guns. You don't make any bullets. You have at best about 30 minutes of ammunition. And when you run out of ammunition, you got to go to the whites to get your bullets. So that won't last long. That's the second. The third one is and this is the one where most of us get trapped. Our middle class, black capitalist control over the political, cultural, social, economic, and educational institutions in the black ghetto. This is the middle class saying this. They want to become shopkeepers and find their way to emulate what the whites are doing in blackface, as if that's going to solve the 95% of our black working class that's really carrying the society. It's not going to solve it to have a black face doing what whites were doing. Just ask Africa. Just look at Africa. You got black folk literally running the same governments that the white folk left and put them in charge of. It's called neocolonialism there. So you would call it the same thing here when you put the black mayors and, you know, preachers and judges and, you know, whatever other Negro they can put in place to operationalize their system. So that's the third one. This is what most people get trapped on, that one. Because it's the black face, they think that black face is going to be on their side. But, you know, we got to be really stupid to not know that Clarence Thomas is black as tar. He's not on your side. That Carson guy is black as tar. He's not on your side.
That's right.
All these Negroes who get those jobs in those positions, they end up bending over like Obama did. They went in bending over. The fact of the matter is they knew what they were getting when they brought him in there.
Absolutely.
They know what they're getting when they put all these blacks in these positions, because they have to operationalize the system that the white folk have set up. So that's number 3. Number 4, the fourth option, you know, was delusional, but certainly, you know, you got to at least walk it through its stages of development, which is carving out 5-state homeland in southern portion of the United States. Now, again, you know, folk were going to try that. And they tried it, elements of it. And you come to see, if you ride down in the South, that the white folk have, each state has a National Guard. You have the Army, you have the Navy, you have the Air Force. These white folk ain't handing over no states to you. Okay.
Not at all, Baba.
Yeah. You would have to be China, and China wouldn't be able to take 5 states from the United States. And they're the most advanced opponent of the Europeans in the world. China is, and they wouldn't be able to get 5 states from the United States, from these whites. So that's number 4. That was delusional, but certainly it was something black folks should, you know, got a chance to try out in the 60s and the 70s. Number 5 is the Zionist Back to Africa movement. And this is what I wanted to spend some time on.
Please do, Baba.
Because we get confused about Back to Africa. We think that we can just take exactly what Garvey was talking about and implement it today. And Zionism is not our approach. Let's explain to you what I mean by this. You see, you take what you are with you wherever you go. I made this post some years ago, and I keep coming back to it. There was a rocket that went out in space all the way to Pluto. It was a ship that took pictures and transmitted them back. You know, Pluto is the last planet in the solar system. Or sometimes they call it a planet, sometimes they don't. They call it an asteroid or something. But the point I'm trying to make is it's far away. If you were to go to Pluto, if you had the opportunity to operationalize that, you know, get the vehicle that could take you there, you would be getting away from white folk and Arabs. But what would you be taking to Pluto? You'd be taking the Europeans' religion, Christianity.
Come on.
You'd be taking Islam, the Arabs' religion with you. You'd be taking this Jew stuff, this Israeli, this nonsense, this Judaism stuff with you. What kind of economic system would you take with you? You would be taking the white people's capitalism with you. You don't know anything else. Most blacks don't know that there have ever been any other social systems in history other than the ones that they're under or have been under with whites. So you'd be taking that economic system with you in blackface. You would have the white folk clothing. You would have the white folk gods. You would
Mm.
have the white folks architecture. You're not building any buildings other than the churches that look like they're built at a mosque. You see Nation of Islam running around with these Arab mosques. You see these folk running around with the Jewish buildings. We're not thinking on those levels. What language would you take with you? Well, you're going to take this English language with you. If you got it, Spanish, Portuguese, wherever these people enslave you, that's what you're going to take with you as your language. Let's keep moving forward. The culture. You know, folk talk about culture. Culture is the sum total of the way in which people do things. Well, what is your sum total of the way in which you're doing things in this country? You brought up us running first to break into Target and steal TVs and running around with a telephone that they're going to catch you with as soon as you turn it on. How stupid are we? Well, you have a culture that's tied to a capitalist system that's predatory. So that's why you immediately go to material stuff to steal. And this is what we're talking about here. Something that is temporary, something that is flesh, not spirit, something that will wear out in a couple of weeks or a couple of days, or that TV is gone in a year, or that car is gone in a few years. Things that are materialized in this society, that's what we're reflecting, because we will take what we are wherever we go. So if we went to Africa like we are now, we would take this poison that we have developed into over there unless we clean ourselves up. And so that's why we spent the time to put on organization together. And right behind it, we put together a book called Initiation, because you can't have an organization of rotten people. And I must admit, we've got a lot of rotten black folk running around our community, claiming African-centered, claiming black nationalism, claiming all kinds of nonsense. I'm not talking about those are nonsense. I'm just saying they're claiming all kind of stuff, and yet and still they're rotten to the core. So you've got to have an initiation system, not only to vet these people, but if there's a chance to improve their moral standing and their work standing, because a lot of people do a lot of talking. You see, we're going to talk. We have folk running around, and see, you're a doctor, you're a PhD, you know this. We have folk running around who haven't finished anything.
Come on, Baba.
And yet and still they're out giving speeches. I saw somebody try to attack you, and I started smiling about it.
Oh yeah, Baba. Baba, I catch it all the time, Baba. I get it all the time.
It's just pure painful to see it, because the Negro who would be doing it, the Negroes who would be doing it, have never been through that process, have never been through the coursework, the qualifying exam, the comprehensive exam, the proposal for a dissertation, the defense, the writing of the dissertation, and the defense of a dissertation. 99% of the folk running their mouth about something have no clue of the level of knowledge you have to reach in order to finish that. That's why only about 1% of our population on the entire planet have a PhD.
Come on, Baba.
So you see these Negroes running around talking, and that's why we get nothing done, because talk replaces work for them. And so you have a community of black people who would go to Pluto or Africa with talk leading. So you wouldn't get much work done. And they would be funding the talkers. You see, they would be giving their resources to people who run around and talk a good game and do no work. 10, 20, 30, 40 years pass, and these Negroes haven't done anything practical to build anything, talking about a skyscraper, and never went to architecture school to learn how to build it. And then once someone goes to architecture school to learn how to build it, they just drew it up. They are not able to then materialize, or should I say, concretize the material necessary to build it with.
And Baba,
that's a stage.
Baba, let me interject for a second. There's a brother in the chat room, brother Cohen Davis. He said, do we need a PhD to get things done. Garvey didn't have a PhD. Brother, I think you missed the point. Baba was trying to tell you that we should be appreciating the intelligentsia that we have among us. He's not saying you need a PhD to get anything done. Go ahead, Baba.
I am saying we need the most advanced minds.
Mm,
Garvey is not in this period. You see, Garvey was in a period where you didn't even need an elementary school degree to get anything done. You could go out
mm,
and talk. You didn't need to graduate from high school. As a matter of fact, almost 80 to 90% of our population hadn't graduated from high school back in the 20s. So we don't need to start comparing periods. We need to say we need our most advanced minds in that period. Now, I want to tell you something about Garvey. He's a great man,
mm,
but the period in history produced Garvey, not Garvey producing the period in history. You got to do your own studies to appreciate that. You got to understand that periods in history produce great people. Those people then have to live out the opportunity they have been given. As you recall, they easily closed that down by putting him in jail for 18 months and then shipping him out of the country. Black folk didn't do anything about that.
mm,
So it shows clearly that the whites were in charge of that process. They could have shipped him out the first year he started doing what he was doing. They could
mm.
have shipped him out the second year. You have to study history. You have to understand why they shipped him out. If they wanted you to leave, which they were thinking about before World War II, World War I broke out, and they saw that there was going to be a World War II after Germany got on its fascist feet. Then they needed blacks here to work. That is why they shipped him out. Before that, they were trying to release value like the Jews have been released valved out of Germany. You got to study stuff carefully. We done that. We did a book called Bach Square. The newest version of it comes out next Tuesday. You should get it. It's 1,050 pages. It means we're not going around talking about something that sounds good. We carry out studies out completely, methodically, year by year, day by day, month by month, year by year. That study goes from 1492 to present. So we
Mm.
know what has happened in this country. So don't bring up some personality and then start making it appear that the person produced the moment. The moment produced the person. This is our point. And he did his great job in that chance he got. He got 6 years and he did well with those 6 years. And as soon as the whites needed to pull that plug, what did they do? They got him on a $5 some kind of mail fraud charge
Yes. Yes.
set up by some black woman that they put in place. You know, they could have done that 4 years ago. Before that, they could have done that at any time. You got to begin to appreciate moments in history, just like this moment. You see, we got a moment now. We have a situation where the world is looking at these whites and what they have done to us. Are we going to continue to do what we've done in the past, which is get all fired up, get out and vent and tear up stuff, and then go back to living just like we were living after that we cool down? Or are we going to get ourselves organized this time and take advantage of the moment in history that we live in? Because it's a unique moment. It's not the same moment as we've lived in the 60s. It's a whole different period. And we've got to find a way to take advantage of those things.
Hey, Baba, I couldn't agree with you more. I just want to take a quick pause to tell the people that I will be giving out 5 copies of Dr. Tdka Kilimanjaro's book on organization. I'm going to be giving out 5 copies tonight live on air. So it will behoove you, in the words of one of my colleagues at Morgan State University, he always tells the students, it will behoove you to stay tuned and to share the show on your social media page. I have my phone right here. So while Dr. Tdka is speaking, I'm going to be looking at that. But in order to win a copy, share the show on your social media page and thumb up the video. In order to get your copy, share the show. And when you share the show, make sure that you tag me in it so that I can see that it's shared. Share this discussion, thumb up the video. And if you aren't subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. After you do those 3 things, type done in the chat so that I can see that you did it. Okay, so I'm gonna repeat it again. Share this discussion on your social media page. Make sure that you tag me. Okay. Oh my goodness, I lost the second thing. All right. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell. All right. Once you finish these things, I want you to type done. Okay. Type done in the comment section so that I can see that you did these things. But Baba, I feel like I done left something out, but it'll come back to me. But anyway, Baba, I want to continue because you got me over here fired up. So Baba, question. I know that you've studied a lot of organizations, a lot of people, organizations, and movements. Okay. If any, which organization or person or movement do you think would be the best model that we can use and follow? Or do you think we should just throw all of them away? What are your thoughts on that? What's the best model?
Well, we're going to have to throw most of them away. Garvey did the best work with what he had in the period that he had. So he would be first to study because he reached over almost 6 million black folk. And even though it was the period in history that determined that, given, the Great Depression was in the black community 3, 4, 5, 6 years before it hit the 1929 period for the whites, we were already feeling that. We were already being forced out of the South into the North. And so we were already running from the situations that we were in the South. And so, again, he had a great period, a great moment. He just had 6 years, but he had it. I say in substance that things moved too fast for what he was trying to build. I mean, let's say the vehicle was a car and he needed a bus or a train. So the vehicle for that organization was small scale. I mean, the organization itself was small scale in its scope, but he was able to utilize it to move a lot of people in many directions. So he's a good beginning. Having said that, you have to appreciate one thing that's been problematic in our groups. We have been building movements around associations. And this is an error. All the organizations you see running around here now, the vast majority of them are associations. I'm not talking about the religious ones, and Islam and Christian. I'm not talking about that. To me, that's useless. That's useless stuff because it's taking you down a path, usually with the whites or the Arabs, that you are actually antithesis to the black people that you're trying to help. You're just parasiting off them. You'll see this when we take your time. You'll see they never do anything other than get what they're going to get out of the situation and then leave. So I say all that to say that we can't use the religious mess, this messianic religious mess that they got going on. We can't use the associations either, the NAACP type stuff. That's an association. It's a loose confederation of people. You really don't have marching orders from that kind of stuff. You have the study groups. I don't want to name no name, but you have the groups that go around saying they research and stuff. They're association. When you ever have these associations, they're not going to do anything. You see, they're not going to be able to do anything because as soon as the traction gets tough, the going gets tough, these people just leave. They're not bound to anything. This is, again, why we did write the book, Initiation, because you begin to see you got to have people who are tempered out of steel in these organizations once you figure out the vehicle that you need to create. You see, you can't have a vehicle going to Mars that you're driving around in a car. Let me say that again. You can't take a Volkswagen to Mars. You can't even take an airplane to Mars. It would not even get out in space. This is what we've been doing with these organizations, these associations, these religious organizations. They are like Volkswagens. I should say horses. You're trying to ride a horse to the Mars or to the moon. This is what we've been doing with these organizations. So I can't tell you one. I've looked at all these things that are in this country. You start listing names, people are going to get mad at you. But they are not what would get us anywhere. And that's why they've all been so easily infiltrated by the FBI, the CIA, all the organizations, NSA, all the organizations that going CONTELPRO, all the organizations of whites who can just get in these organizations and tear them apart in a matter of a year or so, 6 months. There's a reason for that. And so in the final analysis, we would have to have a whole different type of structure. And what I've done is set forth the leaderless cellular structure that has worked throughout the world. That's on organization. That's in that book, On Organization. We have extracted the rational kernel from the movements around the world that have been successful. And all of them have had their base a highly developed population politically and culturally, understanding the moment in history, understanding their role, and involved in organized and leaderless cells that grow into a larger unit over time when the movement necessitates it. You see, you can't be out in the open doing much of anything in life without somebody stopping you. So you're in a body. Just look at it like you're in a body that has antibodies, meaning you're in a society that has antibodies. The moment that antibody picks up that you are against them, I'm just explaining that to you, you're not going to live very long. I mean, openly. When you openly show that part of you, you're not going to stay in that body very long. And so when I explain to you that, I explain to you that you have to slowly develop what you're doing in a methodical way. If I had come out with these 25 books, standing around fighting with these Negroes over a microphone to tell people what I was doing over a 33-year period, none of this would have got done. I had to do it in journals for almost 25 years with nobody knowing what I was doing. Only a few people knew it. In order for this to happen, it's already out now. So whatever happens to me doesn't matter because it's already out now. You see, so the point of the matter is I quietly observed what lost in the past and did the opposite. You see, so you see what we've been losing with. You see how when you get out beating your chest in front of these people, how quickly it's over for you, or your group, or your organization. Instead of taking your time and in a methodical way, quietly going about your business, getting in place the things you need to get in place. And so we've gotten in place the things we need to get in place. This is all icing on the cake. And so having said that, young people are moving forward. I'm not worried about much of anything because I know that they have a moment in history similar to Garvey's. They have it. See, Garvey's was not a closing moment. Garvey's was a moment where you got a glimpse of an economy having growing pains. Well, this economy is like a 90-year-old person. It's in its death stages. And so there's no turning back. You're not going to get these jobs, high-paying jobs. Robots and computerized machines are going to do that work. You're not going to get those jobs back, you see. And the first people to go, that's why they're putting the Hispanics out. The ones who came in here look like them, the Indians. They're putting them out first because they know that they would be taking jobs white people would end up with. And then the next focus is on blacks. When they don't need you here, that's the Garvey movement. That was the Garvey movement. Garvey's movement was tied directly to whites looking around saying, we don't need these niggas. Excuse the expression. We don't need them. But at a certain point, the higher level ruling class tied to the military understood, yeah, we do. We're going to have to fight World War II to get control of these Asians and part of Europe in order to set up a Marshall Plan for them and a MacArthur Plan for Asia so we can parasite off them for the next 80 years, which they did. So I'll end that and say this. We don't take time and study stuff. That's why when that brother brought that up, or whoever brought it up, you got to humble yourself. You don't know how to fly a plane if you hadn't, a passenger plane, if you hadn't gone to school to learn it. You don't know how to build a skyscraper if you hadn't gone to school to learn it. You can't make a car if you hadn't gone to school to learn it. And you shouldn't be able to think that you can do research on a high level if you've never gone to school and learned the technical components of it, having gone through a process. And I see it all the time. These Negroes taking shortcuts and running around talking about research when they don't even know the process of it.
Mm.
We can sit down and discuss it. I wrote a 1,050-page book, Art of Research, 1,050 pages, and that's only to a master's level. I taught 20 years of PhD students, statistics and research methods, 20 years of it. So I have a second book that deals only with the PhD work, meaning multiple regression, factor analysis, path analysis, discriminant analysis, ANOVA, etc. You don't learn that on the street.
Mm-mm.
You don't learn that talking or debating. You learn that getting in school, not taking shortcuts. We should have never been taking shortcuts in this society. Just think where we would be if we took seriously the educational opportunities we got from these whites. We'd be making our own cars. We'd be making our own trucks. We'd be making our own buses. We'd be building our own buildings. But many of us didn't take that seriously. We saw it as a picnic and somewhere talking mess and glorifying talking as opposed to doing. And so I stick to that clearly. I quietly went about my work, and the people who are around me, we didn't say a word. And if we had been saying a word, these white folk would have stopped us. Those books are already completed now. And anything that I talk to you about doing, I've already done it. I'll say it again. When you talk about something, you should have already done it when you're in this society. You don't go around talking about stuff that you hadn't already done. And that's one of our biggest problems around here. And a brother told me about it. Was something we said in the book, scaling fish that you haven't caught.
Ooh.
We out scaling fish that we haven't caught. So I stick to that, Dr. Maat. I stick to the fact that we're not prepared because we take shortcuts. Every Negro who are running around here talking now should be serious about getting into a technical school somewhere and going all the way through it. And then quietly getting out and getting organized with people they can spread this information to. If you're an architect, go all the way through that. And then get these young people around you and teach them how to do that. The same thing that I'm doing with research methods and statistics. The reason we can study 10, 15 different topics is because we know the research method to use in order to summarize that area. We didn't learn that on the street. We didn't learn that in debates or arguments with people. You have to get in these schools and extract the most advanced information from these people. How do you think China came from behind in less than 70 years?
Yes,
One lifetime, these people were smart enough to reverse engineer anything that hit their land. And even get smart enough to get into white folks' school. I remember when I was helping a person get their PhD at University of Michigan. I was on their committee. I was sitting in the crowd, and she was walking across the stage. And before she walked across the stage, they had the physical sciences go across the stage. And almost 90% of the people who were in physics and chemistry and biology and computer science, they were Asians. This is at the University of Michigan over 10 years ago. They were Asians. And many of them, when I asked around, they were Chinese. So they have learned from these people quietly what these people know. And they're applying it now on a world scale. When you want to get something engineered and built throughout the world, not only in Africa, but in South America, in the Caribbean, and other parts of Asia and India, who do you think engineers is building that stuff? The Chinese are building it. They have the top number of engineers on the planet.
They do.
In China. And that's all because they seriously understood what capitalism was and how to use it. If the white folk didn't have a market to sell these goods to, then they would have to destroy them like they're doing now with those. You see them killing pigs and you see them burning oranges and apples because they can't sell this stuff. You see millions of pigs being euthanized. They show it. Just go to your newspapers. You see oranges and apples and pears and peaches all being dug in a hole and burnt. That's capitalism. It doesn't have a market to sell it. You can't make a profit from it. You have to burn it to keep the market value up. So I say all that to say We have not seriously studied things carefully. We've had people who take shortcuts leading us. And whenever you got folk who take shortcuts, who want to talk about the car but don't know how to build it, you're gonna be producing people who just run around talking. Whenever you got people running around talking about the skyscraper for 30 or 40 years, trying to convince you that they're smart, then you'll never get to the people who actually have learned how to build a skyscraper. And then the next part of it is the people who can do the building, meaning ones who design it and the ones who build it. You'll never get to those two people or that two processes if you can't get past the Negroes running around talking about the thing. Talking about a movement and have never put together an organizational manual to build one. Talking about initiation and have never put together manuals to explain why people need to be purified and organized in a certain way in order to carry out some lethal and serious activities. Meaning in substance, we talk too much. That's what I said before, and I stick to it. We talk too much and do too little work. So I'll close and say this. It really hits my soul when someone brings up the fact that we should not inspire to go the highest we can go. When people bring up, oh no, this person did it with no education. Well, we're not in a period where you can do it with no education. Just understand that. We are not riding around on a horse. Okay, they have cars now. And I'll tell you something else. They have planes now. And they have rockets now. We are not on horses. We're not walking. So we have got to get up to speed. And this is what's been lost in all of this. So we wrote on organization, and I guess it was very meaningful in this period, because as soon as this spontaneous movement is over, people go back home. The state is now preparing, to force the military on people. It's mainly black people. See, they can't do it yet because the whites are out there. I know this is something we should discuss in detail later.
Absolutely.
But, people get caught up talking about the white people out there. You need to have just blacks. If there were just blacks, they would have no argument in the New York Times about putting the Army and the Marines on that population. They would have been shooting you down like a dog. It's because they had those whites out there that they see that could be Kent State. If you study Kent State, you'll appreciate that. You don't have the military shooting white people. That's going to stick with them. And they will then have an opportunity to forge some type of class relationships with black folk. And once they do that, it'll be difficult for the ruling class to just isolate us and to destroy us. Because if we out there by ourselves, they will easily isolate us and remove us. So we got to get smarter in our thinking processes. And that's what I wanted to harp on, that we're disorganized, and there's a reason for it, because people want to stay at first grade. Okay. 12th grade is not enough, sir. Ma'am, you can't stay at 12th grade. No, that bachelor's, that ain't enough. That master's, that ain't enough. That PhD, that's not enough. Once you got that, learn from 20 other folk who have reached high levels of thinking. Get in there and study from them. Don't think for one moment that I didn't keep hanging around people who were smarter than me. That's what you got to do, and humble yourself.
That's right, Bob.
And so we haven't seen this in our population. And so I will get on any young person that comes running to me talking about, well, Garvey didn't have it. Well, you get on the airplane, who do you want flying the plane? Somebody who's never flown one? Who has no training? I know I'm not getting on that plane. And that's what's happening in our community. Black folk who have never done anything are leading movements. They've never built anything, and yet they're telling you how to build something. They never finished anything, and yet they're telling you how to finish. So whenever you talk to me, you're talking to a person that's speaking to finishing stuff and then talking. Don't talk about what you're going to do. Have it already done. And so that's the organizational philosophy that I would argue with anyone on. Study the movements that have won. Don't study the ones that are lost. Don't, just because they're black and they lost, you have no time to waste on losses first.
Mm.
You should be studying the ones that won.
Oh, Baba,
And they could be,
let me interject, Baba. You said the ones that won. How do you feel about the Haitian Revolution? Because typically, when people think about successful revolution, they use that as a reference. What are your thoughts about that, Baba? Do you feel like? I mean, well, what are your thoughts on that, Baba?
well, it's been poorly researched. You know, a lot of speculation about things, and they then start throwing in the religious stuff, which really confuses me, because if the religious stuff was doing so much, why are they living like that now? They still doing the religious stuff. They still got the voodoo stuff going on, and they're the poorest population on the planet. So the religious stuff may be useful for people who are scared of something and need some type of mystical stuff to inspire them to do something. But I'll tell you something. If you carefully study the Haitian Revolution, and it was a revolution because it was a race revolution, it overthrew the whites, but it was not a social revolution. He kept the same system, almost the same system in place that the whites had. You know, that's why you have this situation where they could be handing, as soon as they put the whites out, they start paying them. You know, France. They paid France for almost over 100 years to keep that system in place. Go back and research it. But I was getting ready to say that what happened in Haiti was tied directly to a military soldiers that fought in the Revolutionary War. Go back and study this. They fought on the side of the British. And once that war was over in 1789, the British sent some of them to Sierra Leone, and some of them were sent through shipping processes to that region. And those were the leadership who had already fought in a war. Those were some of the leading soldiers that led that war. They knew strategy, which is most important. They knew how to fight, which was most important. You can put the religious, mystical stuff on top of that. But if they had not got the proper training and the proper exercise in the revolutionary, what's called the Revolutionary War in the United States, they would have never, fighting on the side of the British, they would have never been able to lead that revolution. So we get confused about that. I don't want to hear no talk about religion and stuff like that that's doing anything, because it ain't doing anything now. It wasn't doing anything 30 years ago or 50 years ago or 100 years ago. It was when conditions laid the foundation for a highly trained military force to be trained through individuals who had already fought in a war and knew that the elements of fighting, that Haiti could win. And again, it was an opening that they took advantage of. And because we don't study history on its material basis, you being a scientist know this, you can't be mystical with this stuff. You have got to tie yourself to the scientific reality. When I started talking about black folk running around here talking about they're going to shoot the whites, I was like, look at you being stupid. You are 54 million people at best. They're almost 250 million. Number two, you have guns that you got from them. You bought from them. You think they're going to sell you guns if you start fighting them? Number three, your ammunition. You don't have enough ammunition. This is just material reality to last for 30 minutes. Let's give you an hour. What do you think happens after your hour is up? You end up being massacred. So that's not a path that a material, scientific thinking person would waste time on. You would start thinking about, how do I organize to end something? And I want to say this. What we're ending is, you've been in a womb for 9 months. It's time to get out. You see, those contractions with Garvey, those were early contractions, what are called false contractions. These are real ones. We are in this womb. You know how a baby, when it's in the womb too long, is gotten too big for that womb, and it's kicking, and it's causing the mother pain, and it's also causing the kid pain because it's too big for the womb. That's what's happening with us now. You see, we're in this womb too long. We're prepared to be able to get out, but we're not clean enough to get out. And if we were clean, we'd be able to see clearly how we need to get from under these people and get out of this country in an organized way. You see, and I know the next point somebody's going to make is we built it. Yeah, you did. You can build one without them now, without them over you. And you've got to study that carefully because no way in their lives are you going to be able to build anything underneath them. They're not going to allow it. History does not allow an enslaving population to let the enslaved population rule it. That's nowhere in history will you find an enslaving population allowing an enslaved population to rule it.
Mm.
You just go and study your history. If you take your time and study things, you will see very clearly that does not happen, especially when the enslaving population is the dominant majority. Even the minority in South Africa still wields power over a population that's almost 70% black.
Yeah. Yes.
And they were the enslaving populations. These is 6 million of them whites. Let's say 4 million because they try to claim the brown ones or the mixed ones. But 4 million, and you got almost 70 million blacks, almost 70. And yet and still, they live like animals compared to the whites because the whites will not allow the economic and military and science and technological system to be handed over to the black population. The blacks would have had to take it, but they haven't done that. So let me end this. We can't be delusional. We can't be mystical. We can't run around with these sorry religions we picked up from these enslavers. When somebody comes running to me with Islam, I just keep walking. Or Christianity or Judaism, I know they're too behind in their thinking to even understand past the mysticism they've taken on. They will go to Pluto and set up some type of aristocracy or whatever, some mess. You see, they will take that with them. I don't want to be nowhere near Negroes start talking about religion. I don't want to be near them because I know they're not serious. You see, people who run around with this mysticism, they are not going to do anything. So get from around them. Don't waste time with them. If you're trying to organize something, you want clear-headed people. You want organized people. You want people without egos. Somebody comes running to you talking about, yeah, I want to do a shortcut. Let's organize stuff around shortcuts. You immediately leave them because you know they're not going to get anything done. Who takes a shortcut building a car when there's a series of systematic procedures to build that car, and even the most advanced technologies don't take those kind of shortcuts. Even roboticized technologies don't take shortcuts. And yet black folk always want to take not all of them, but most always want to take the easy way out and talk about the easiest way to do it. It's easy to go around talking mess and never build anything.
Come on,
so
Baba.
I say all that to say, I'm closing.
Baba, you don't need to close, Baba. You got me over here fired up, Baba. You don't need to close.
We have to be more serious. And I'm just trying to point out the things you don't get caught into, because you asked me a great question about what organization should you pattern yourself after. And I said, really, none of them. And the only one that we can give some credit to is Garvey's movement. Okay. I didn't say Marxist stuff. I didn't bring that up. I didn't say get yourself caught up in black nationalist stuff. I didn't say that. I said study the rational kernel of the most advanced movements that won. That's what I said. And if they won, that's what you should be studying. And you should be extracting the rational kernel from each one of those movements, and not eclectically, but in a systematic way, putting together your strategy for victory. You should be putting it together from those winning organizations, not the losing ones.
Right.
You see, you can't learn anything from losers. I think people keep losing sight of what that means. I mean, you can learn how to lose from them and talk about winning, but I learned this in sports. You can't learn from losers. You got to see who won the year before and how they won. And then you have got to replicate with what talent you have and the preparation you have, how they went about that, and then add something new to it. You can't take losers and then build something on it. And this is what we've been doing. We've been taking people who have been losing and try to build movements on losing. So yeah, Garvey did good work. He was shortchanged, but I tell you, they had control of that process from beginning to end. They saw it. They saw an opening. It's like, okay, well, we need those Negroes now. We need them to work. Oh hell, we're gonna have a civil rights movement 30 years down the road. They saw this. I'm gonna tell you why. They put the Supreme Court together that allowed them to change those desegregation rules. You see, that Supreme Court was not the same one that put those rules in place. Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. That was not the same Supreme Court. They changed that Supreme Court for that period because they knew they had to use these Negroes in the military. What was the first place desegregated? The military. Go study it. It wasn't the Marines. It wasn't the Marines, but it was the Army and later the Navy and the Air Force. The Marines were late. A bunch of racists completely, but they desegregated those first. Go study it. And when the black men came back after fighting in Germany, what did they do to them? They killed them soldiers. They just did everything they could to try to break the back of them because they didn't want black people to be able to use what they had learned talent-wise against whites.
Absolutely. Baba.
So they went after the military blacks first because those are the fighting ones. No one goes after these religious folk running around, crawling up and down the street, letting people kick them all over the place. Who cares about that? Nobody cares about that. You see Negroes running around everywhere getting beat up, talking about we're doing it for freedom. No, they don't care nothing about you. They care about somebody who's wielding some power, some force. And so I'll say that in close, that we've been doing right by you all. And I see you as one of my children. I'm heading into my 60s. So the point I'm trying to make is I don't have much time. I've lived and done what I had to do quietly. If I had been talking and wasting time debating and running around here doing all the mess that we do just to take shortcuts, none of what we have done would have gotten done.
That's right.
We did it quietly. We got the work completed. And so no matter what happens in the future, that work is completed and some young person is going to be able to benefit from it. We have 25 books, 5 of which are over 1,000 pages. That's never been done in history in our country. Never been done by anybody black or anybody white, because I've studied most of the white ones who were doing detailed large scale work, and they haven't done it. And this is not large print. This is small print. And so the point I'm trying to make is when you're quiet and you go about your business, you can get work done. But if you're running around beating your chest, trying to get credit for something that you have not done, then you're not going to get much of anything done. And that's what these movements have been. So no, don't waste time on losing movements. Don't waste time on losing organizations. Don't waste time on religious organizations. Don't waste the time. Those Negroes ain't gonna do nothing but talk, okay, and pray and beg. They may beat you up, like they killed Malcolm. They may kill Malcolms, but they ain't gonna do none of the white folk. They ain't gonna do none of these Arabs around there enslaving us throughout Libya, enslaving us throughout Sudan, enslaving us throughout Mauritania. Do you see these Arab Negroes running around here trying to end that? They ain't gonna do nothing except hurt other black people.
And
talk and hurt other black people. Okay, so I don't waste time with them. That's why we've gotten as much work as we've gotten done, because we don't waste time. And when I see somebody wanting to debate, I know they aren't serious. We put that in our books, because what does a debater do after they finish proving to somebody they're smarter than somebody else? What do? Do they build anything? No, they go on and start name calling somebody else. They go on and start arguing with somebody else. And what happens when there's nobody to argue with? Well, they're not doing anything. They have nothing to do because they don't have anything to stand on, because they believe debating and arguing is work, when in fact is nothing. So I've said a lot here.
Oh yeah, Baba.
I've said some main things.
Oh yeah,
and
Baba.
I've told you what to stay away from.
Yes, you have, Baba.
And you need to be clear on that when I speak to you about it.
Yes, sir.
Because the Haitian Revolution is something to study carefully in its material formation, not in this mystical nonsense. Whenever you start talking about mystical nonsense, you should be able to apply it now. Or you should have been able to apply it 100 years after 1803. You see? It ain't never worked after that. There's a reason for that. The conditions had to be there for it to work.
Come on, Baba.
See, people don't do their studying of the conditions. It's almost like understanding what it takes to make a cake. If you ain't got no flour and you ain't got the butter and you ain't got the eggs and the stuff, how you gonna make the cake? So that's what we're losing. We don't study things carefully. We run around and try to find an individual in there, a leader, and try to make the leader the movement. And then you come to find that how can they be the movement when the white people can just easily put them in jail for 18 months and then ship them out of the country? You see, it was not the individual that was the process of motion. It was the movement of black folk in a certain direction that person reflected. And so we're trying to get you all to reflect the process in history and be able to reflect what's necessary to win. And so that's what I'm getting across. Quietly go about your work. Get your work done first before you talk about it. And when you talk about it, be short and to the point. And move on to the next assignment. That's what I've been doing. Moving on to the next assignment. We've got 6 more to do. Really, they've already been done. It's just a matter of teeing them up when the time comes to release them. And then we'll be done with this phase of our work. Then move on to the University of Kemet. And if I'm not around to get that part of it done, I mean the online, we have young people coming up the ranks. I mean, young people who are not afraid of PhDs. Come on, young people who are not afraid to go in there and face a qualifying exam, which Negroes don't even understand the context of a qualifying exam. You have to study every single thing in that area. You don't know what's going to be on the exam. They could throw you any kind of left wing or right wing or curveball question, and you still have to answer it. And if you fail that exam, you have only one more chance to pass it. And most people who fail the first time fail the second time.
Right. Absolutely.
Because they're scared. I mean, everything is on it. You done put 5 years into a program and you done took the exam and you fail. You know you got to go to another school. Or quit. You wasted 5 years. So anybody who's been through this process knows what you go through. And then at Howard, we had 2 exams. We didn't have one. We had 2. We had a qualifying, which is the hardest thing you're going to go through. And then we had a comprehensive, which is like focusing in on your field of study type exam. You have to be a master of that. Mine was research methods and statistics. So I had to be a master of that area. So when Negroes running around talking about this stuff, they don't really understand what it takes to get any of this stuff done. And that's why I tell you, find young people who are not afraid to win. And that's what I look for. And that's what I've been working with. And those young people are finishing their educations and they'll be put in key places and they'll get the rest of the work done. So that's how I look at it.
Absolutely. Real quick, Baba, I'm giving out 5 books, 5 copies of Baba's book on organization. I'm giving out 5 copies at the end of the show. In order to win a copy, you have to do a few things. You have to share the video on your social media page and tag me in it. Okay. Then you have to subscribe to my channel, Dr.Oya Maat, my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell. All right. And then post done in the chat. I see some folks have already done it on Facebook. I've looked in the chat and I see done. And I'm looking in the chat on YouTube and I see that a few people have done it and typed done. While Baba's talking, I know you see my light going off on my cell phone. I'm going into the chat to see who's doing it. At the end of this conversation, I'm going to announce the winners and I will be shipping your books out ASAP. Baba,
yes.
When I received your book, okay, I was laying in bed and I always, when I get a book, I read the back of it. So I go to the book. I immediately go to the back. So I was reading the back of the book, and at the end, okay, well, the first paragraph is powerful. Okay, when you talk about Africanist movements, and you're talking about how a lot of the movements are disorganized, provincial, scattered, outmoded, unprepared, obsolete, and in a state of disintegration. Okay, and then you go on to say that, in order to create a an effective organization, you said that members will have to give up all holdovers from slavery. You said names, clothes, beliefs, religions, holidays, habits, values, norms, attitudes, behaviors, diets, fears, philosophies, etc. You said let it go, strip down, and rebuild from nothing. And so, Baba, I have to be honest, when I read that, I said, goodness, I started thinking, I'm looking at my Kwanzaa principles, and one of the principles is Imani, faith, right? And I said, oh, I don't know, Baba. I said, are we really ready? Are we really ready for that, Baba? I mean, because that's a lot of sacrifices. You got a lot of people who don't want to give up, their religions. You got a lot of folks who don't want to give up their values and norms and their philosophies. Hell, they don't want to give up their holidays. You got Black folks out here still celebrating, the 4th of July. You get what I'm saying, Baba? I'm saying, hey, let's celebrate Juneteenth, or let's create our own holidays. Let's do away with Thanksgiving. Let's do away with, but I do it because, my family, of course, they still celebrate the bulk of the holidays. But what I love about my family is that they're so open-minded. Like my family said, hey, if you want to do Kwanzaa, we'll do Kwanzaa. You want to celebrate Juneteenth? Let's celebrate Juneteenth. You all don't want to do Thanksgiving? We can do, a Moja Karuma, a unity feast. So that's what I love about my family. They're getting there, Baba.
Yes.
Like they actually get it. And I had to go at the matriarchs of my family. I know my auntie, she's watching right now, but the matriarchs, I had to go to them and say, hey, can we do this? And I presented these ideas to them, and they said, let's rock and roll. So my family, I see a shift, Baba, right now happening in my family. We're doing away with a lot of norms and a lot of beliefs and value. We're doing away with a lot of things, and we're really transforming, Baba, becoming very African centered, a very African centered family. And I see that. But Baba, back to your book, when I read this passage, I started thinking, Baba, do you think that we're ready? Do you think that we're ready for this, Baba? Because what you're asking us to do, you said strip down and rebuild from nothing.
Yes.
That's a lot of sacrifice, Baba.
Yeah. And I want to say, I do appreciate you bringing that up, because if I had more room on that back, I would have just explained that's the officer's corps that has to do that. See, a soldier can, which is our family, soldiers can come at any time. In a war, the officers are the ones that organize the war, meaning in substance. Soldiers come in and they meet a drill sergeant. The drill sergeant then whips them into shape. It strips them down. If you're military, you know what that means. It means for that 13 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever time you go through the military's training, you get stripped down, and then you get reconstructed. You learn how to follow orders, number one, but you learn discipline. Okay, you learn a military style discipline. And so that's what I'm talking to. I'm talking to officers there. I'm not talking to the soldiers who are going to come in when the war starts, and as soon as the war over, they go back to doing what they were doing. Officers stay around. I mean, they're the ones who organize the society after that. They're the ones who are in place. I mean, you study China, you study Mao Zedong, you pretty much saw what happened. They fought quietly for 20 to 25 years before they won. And when they won, Mao and those organized the society after winning. The officers' corps did that. The Red Army was just the Red Army, meaning in substance, millions of the soldiers that had come through were being processed through yearly, and many of them got old and many of them came back in. So the point I'm trying to make about that is, I was talking about officers. Officers have to be able to look at a religion and say, get rid of the three religions I brought up: Christianity, Islam, Judaism. That's the white people's and Arab stuff. That's their stuff. Let it go. Now, officers can do that. Soldiers, they're going to have a hard time doing it. Okay. So you brought that up, and I wanted to close that part. Officers are clear about discipline. they know they can't go around with the names of the enslavers. You can't do it. Go on down there and change that name.
Mm.
Get it done. Go on, do it. I had to do it. I quickly got it done. I went on down there, bit my tongue, and all the people in the family talking about why you changing your name. You can't do this. Who's going to remember us? And da da da. No, I'm going down here. I'm getting rid of this enslaver's name. I'm
Come
getting
on.
it done. The things that you know you need to do, you need to just go on do them. Your diet, you can't be around here eating this pork and all this meat and stuff. Let it go. So all these things that are killing us, we need to stop doing. Brothers beating up these women, yes, beating the hell out of them, raping them. No, stop it. You can't bring that kind of lack of discipline and morality into a movement. And so we don't want you. This is my point. I don't want to be around no Negroes that have these problems. But if we got an officer with these problems, we got problems, because we can always work a soldier through a process of training. When you come in for your basic training, they'll vet you and see who can make it.
That's right.
You can't make it. They just cut you off. They give you your ticket back, or where they send you, get your bag and let you go home. But an officer carrying out Negro-ish behavior, you can't do nothing with that. So I was talking about officers there. The officers corps. That's what I was talking about there.
Okay.
But
okay.
I hope the soldiers are listening too. That's what I do. I hope.
Okay, so that was for, got you. So you said that was for the officers, not
that's for the officer. Yeah.
Okay. I understood. I totally understand, Baba. And so, Baba, I'm gonna ask you this one last question, and I'm gonna let you go, Baba.
It's dark out here. I'm walking out.
I know.
I might get shot at. I am a city, even though it's like 50% black. The black folk don't be defending you around here. They don't defend you.
I know, Baba, and I appreciate your time. So, Baba, my last question is: do you feel that Black people, African people, are ready and capable of revolution? Do you think we're ready and capable, Baba?
Well, we're gonna have to define it. I gave you the 5 things that we've done in the past that have been less than have been failures. I also pointed out that we are in the womb after 9 months. It's time for us to get out of this womb. Now, if we can define revolution properly, there are officers who are going to organize this properly. You see, soldiers will come. I'm going to say something, but you got to study it yourself. Herzl and that group were preparing Jewish folk getting out of Germany in the 1800s. Okay, 1890s, late 1880s, 1890s. They were preparing to get out. This was the officers' corps that was moving to what became Israel. They were settling in Palestine. That was in the 1890s. Well, when Hitler comes to power and then, kills all these people, slaughters, mass murders in them, that's over 30 years later. See, so the soldiers, people who are just running around, having, the time of their life, caught in the middle of stuff and not understanding it, they're not going to make it if they don't change. But I'm speaking to folk who can see things honestly. They will be organized to get out of this situation. So that's my point, that the people who are humble and clear and honest and have integrity, they will take this information and do something with it work-wise. The people who are not that way, they're not going to do anything. They'll be the first one to say, let me fly the plane, and they had not gone to flight plane training school, or let me operate on this person. I'm a surgeon.
Right.
Well, where did you get your, are you licensed? No, I'm a surgeon. I can do it. Those are the people who want to lead stuff, taking shortcuts. So no, I'm speaking to the officers now. Again, get yourself prepared. I mean, soldiers who can be officers. That's what I'm speaking to. Persons who want to do the necessary things, a small percentage of them will be the officers, and then you'll have a situation where a larger percentage will be processed through the system they put in place. That's what I'm saying. And these young people I see around me are moving toward that. So yes, I have not faith, I have a knowledge that the process is moving as it should. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I got you. I got you, Baba. Well, thank you so much, Baba, for coming through. And look, I know earlier you saw me slide back and grab this off of my bookshelf. I mentioned it
Yes, you
earlier.
got it. You got it.
Yeah, I have it. So I have a
See,
lot of, brothers and
see.
sisters. I'm telling you, this is my Baba. Like he said, I'm his daughter. This is my Baba. This, and when we say Baba, for those who are just tuning in and not really in the community, when we say Baba, we say father. So when I call him my Baba, I'm calling him my father. Okay, so I have a lot of his books. I've been studying his work for a number of years. I would never ask you to get something that I don't personally own. So I'm showing you his work. I'm showing you my art, the guiding principles of moral living. In fact, Bob, if I turn my computer around, I have your poster to my right.
Wow.
Let me see if I
Well,
can.
thank
Let
you.
me look. Let me see, Bob, if I can tilt it a little bit. Oh, so if I go, you see that your
I see
poster?
it. I see it.
Yeah, that is your
I,
poster. That
I
is your
see it.
that is your
I see.
poster. And I had my 10-year-old, if I called his name, and I'm not going to do it now, but I had him memorize those principles, those 13 principles. So yeah, so I have my aunt. I also have his book African K through 12, because for those who know who I am, they know I'm interested in African centered education. So
Yes.
I had to get this. All right, what must be done?
Yes, that's a great one. That's hot. I want to
Yeah.
say one more thing before I go.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
want anyone to leave here thinking you got to go to the white man's university to get this education. I was speaking to study under people who've gotten it. You see, folk who are going into engineering should be studying under you.
That's right.
People who've done this work. And that's what I meant. I didn't mean you got to go to the white man's school and learn this. You need to be, if you're trying to learn how to fly a plane, have your instructor have flown these planes and then study under that, she or he, study under that person so you can learn how to do it. I didn't mean to make it look like you got to go through the white people system or their universities. I meant to say you need to study under people who've actually done it. That's what I meant. You can't learn much of anything from people who haven't done it, who can only talk about it. Learn from people who have done it. That's what I meant. I didn't want to steer you into the white people's university, even though some of you should go. I'll leave it at that.
All right. So what must be done? Also, SIBA, a researcher's first handbook, and tonight on organization. And I felt, Baba, like this was fitting because of everything that's going on. And people are saying, well, what should we do? And then I see a lot of spontaneous movements going on, a lot of disorganization. So I said, no, I got to get Baba on the platform to talk about his book on organization. So family, please go. Baba, can you tell them your website so they can go to your website and grab the book? Because I see a few people asking if it's on Amazon.
Yeah, they can easily get, just go to Facebook, UKMT Press. That's how easily it is to get us now. We like Facebook. Facebook gets us where we need to go. So UKMT Press is right. Just type it in and everything will come up, send you right to it. And thank you, dear, for having me. I know I got carried away a bit, but
oh no, Baba.
But one of your callers set me off. I was just thinking about how we lose, and again I started thinking about, okay, we modeling losing. We need to be modeling winning, okay, instead of modeling losing. So I'm just fighting to get young people to model winning. It's going to be harder. You see, it's easy to lose. Anybody can just show up and lose. You know that, but it's hard to win. It's hard to prepare to win. It takes extra to win. It doesn't take anything to lose. Now, how much you want to lose by? You want to lose by 1,000 or 100 or 50, or you want to lose by 1? But it takes something to learn how to win. And that's what I want young people to learn, how to win. So we're working on the officers' corps, and we'll see where it goes. But no, I'm not trying to target everybody. Some people want to be soldiers, and some of you don't want to do anything. Most of our people don't want to do anything. Okay, so you got a situation where quite a few want to be soldiers. We'll want to see what that soldiering does. We want to see where that goes. We want to see what they become. We want to test them. We want to vet them. That's what we're saying.
And Baba, I agree. We got to vet it. You got to go through a vetting process. And like you said, instead of just, oh, this is the leader, because you sound good or you speak well, or you may be articulate, or you may have, oh my gosh, Bob, I'm sitting here thinking of a word. It's Oh my gosh, Baba. I just kind of had a brain fart, but
Well, it's zero.
yeah, but
That talk is zero to me. It means zero.
yeah.
You can't build anything talking. I got to run, my sister. Good speaking with you.
Yes, Baba. Thank you so much for coming on the platform. As soon as you hang up, I'm going to announce the winner.
I love you, dear.
I
Take
love you
care.
too, Baba. Peace and love.
All right.
All right, guys. So Baba is out of here. I'm going to announce the winner. Let me pull it up. The 5 winners. Brother Kadeem Stewart. Please inbox me your shipping address so I can mail your copy out to you, brothers. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing the video, and subscribing to my channel. Sister Ebony, my sister, thank you. I love you, sis. You've been a huge supporter. Oh my goodness. You've been supporting the Meltrek project since it came out in 2014. You're always posting videos of your children engaging with the Meltrek program. Thank you so much, my sister, for tuning in. Sister Ebony, please inbox me your shipping address. Sister Tina Anderson, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing this video. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Please inbox me your shipping address. Brother James Browser, thank you so much, brother, for tuning in, sharing the discussion, subscribing to my channel. Please inbox me your shipping address. And last but not least, Brother Jamal Shalah, please inbox me your shipping address. Thank you so much for tuning in. Family, before you go, I'm going to have a powerful discussion on Thursday. Show up 8 p.m. It's a heavy hitter. Now, you thought that Tdka Kilimanjaro was a heavy hitter or is a heavy hitter. Join me on this platform at 8 p.m. on Thursday. I have a heavy hitter coming on. I'm super excited. People probably have already figured it out. It's one of the Babas that actually introduced me to consciousness in 1996. So I probably gave it away, but I'm going to have him on my show Thursday at 8 p.m. Please subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell. So as soon as I go live, family, you are notified. Okay. I'm trying to see if I have anybody else coming up before Thursday. Nope. I just have Thursday, okay? Thursday, June the 11th at 8 p.m., family. Join me back here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace, love, and light.